If you think we have a cost of living crisis now, wait for what's coming next. Your rent, your mortgage, your grocery bill, even the interest on your credit card are tied in ways most people never see to what happens in the world of US debt. When that system starts to strain, it doesn't show up on some chart in Washington. It shows up in your monthly statement, in shrinking savings, in a currency that buys less every year. To understand where your money is heading, we need to look at how the foundations of this system are shifting. For years, China has been quietly walking away from US debt. There is no press conference saying, "We're done," but the numbers are clear. Over the last 10 years, Beijing has cut its holdings of US Treasuries roughly in half. And this is not a small investor taking some profits. China is still the third largest foreign holder of US government debt. When a creditor of that size keeps cutting exposure year after year, it is a structural warning, not a random move. Look at the incentives. The US can freeze another country's assets with one sanctions package. It can hit exports with new tariffs and block banks from using dollar payment systems. If you are on the other side of that power, how long do you want to keep lending your savings to Washington and trusting that politics will never touch them? That is the basic logic behind de-dollarization. Countries are not arguing about ideology. They are trying to protect themselves from a system that can punish them whenever US policy shifts. China is not doing this in isolation. BRICS members and other emerging economies are openly testing ways to trade oil, gas, and other commodities in local currencies. They are building alternative payment rails and signing long-term deals that do not need the dollar in the middle. At the same time, big private players in those countries, banks, funds, corporations, are slowly changing how they invest. They are trimming US bonds, cutting US stocks, and adding more exposure to assets they feel they can control. For the US, this is a direct threat to how the whole debt machine works. The system survives on a steady stream of buyers willing to hold trillions in treasuries. If that foreign demand weakens, the safe asset becomes much more expensive to finance. And recently, the pressure has not only come from abroad. Even the official guardians of credit risk have started to change how they rate America's ability to pay its bills, and their decisions are already visible in everyday borrowing costs. When people hear about a credit downgrade, it sounds technical, far away from daily life. But this time, the signal was loud. Moody's, the last of the three big rating agencies still giving the US a perfect AAA score, finally cut America to AA1. For the first time since 1919, the country that issues the world's main reserve currency no longer has a flawless rating from any major agency. The reason they gave was simple: massive deficits and interest costs that are exploding with no clear plan to stop them. Markets reacted fast. Bond prices dropped and yields jumped. The yield on the 30-year US Treasury moved above 5%. The 10-year went through 4.5%. These are not just lines on a trader's screen. US Treasuries are the base layer that sets prices for almost every other loan in the system. Take mortgages. In this environment, 30-year fixed mortgage rates moved up toward the 6.97% range. Even 15-year loans were already above 6.2%. That is the cost of buying a home with debt. On the short-term side, the federal funds rate has been stuck around 4.25 to 4.5%. With that kind of policy rate, the average credit card now charges close to 20% interest. You can argue about politics, but you cannot escape math. Higher perceived risk means higher yields. Higher yields mean higher borrowing costs for households and businesses. And this is not a one-off event. Standard & Poor's downgraded the US back in 2011. Fitch followed in 2023. Moody's held out the longest, but now all three major agencies are saying the same thing. US debt is a notch riskier than before. The safe haven label remains, yet the armor has visible cracks. So confidence is slipping, and yields are rising at the very moment when Washington needs more buyers than ever. That raises a hard question. Who is still stepping up to hold all this debt, and how stable are their motives when the pressure increases? For most of the post-war era, the picture was simple. The main buyers of US Treasuries were central banks and governments. They treated treasuries as long-term reserves, a political tool and a symbol of stability. They were sticky holders. They did not dump their bonds every time yields moved a little. because their goal was control over the system, not quarterly profit. That world has started to change. In 2022, the Federal Reserve launched the fastest rate hike cycle in modern history. Yields on treasuries jumped from almost nothing to levels investors had not seen in years. Suddenly, the asset that used to pay close to 0% began to offer 3%, 4%, even more. Private money saw an opportunity. Pension funds, mutual funds, hedge funds, insurers, money market funds rushed in. They stepped into the gap left by foreign central banks, and for a while it looked like the problem was solved. But the character of the market changed. Central banks buy for strategy. Private investors buy for return. A central bank can hold through volatility. A fund manager cannot. The moment the risk does not match the return on the screen, private buyers sell. That means more sudden moves in yields, more liquidity squeezes, and a treasury market that is more fragile at the exact moment it needs to be rock solid. Now add China's latest move on top of this. According to reports, Chinese regulators have quietly called in their biggest banks and told them to curb future purchases of US Treasuries and gradually cut existing positions. In practice, that means stop growing this exposure and start shrinking it. Chinese banks sit on roughly 298 buy in dollar-denominated bonds. Officials label this guidance risk management and concentration risk. Not geopolitics, but the effect is the same. Chinese private money is being pushed out of US government debt. At the same time, Chinese clients are already shifting toward European high-quality bonds, Japanese government bonds, and gold. Even without a panic dump, this kind of steady retreat nudges yields higher and weakens confidence in the dollar. It also sends a clear message to the rest of the world. Too much US exposure is now officially treated as a risk, and this shift in who buys and why is happening just as the US hits the largest refinancing wall in its history. When people talk about US debt, they usually look at the total number, but the real danger is in the calendar. Over the next 12 months, about $9.6 trillion of US marketable government debt will mature. That is the largest refinancing wall in history. Roughly 33% of all outstanding marketable public debt has to be rolled in a single year. Before the 2020 crisis, the amount coming due was about half of this. Now the wall is roughly 2 times higher. Most of that $9.6 trillion was issued when interest rates were near 0%. Back then, the government could borrow almost for free. That world is gone. Today, similar maturities are being sold at yields in the 4-5% range or even higher, depending on demand. The gap between 0% and 4-5% is not a small adjustment. It is a funding shock. Do the basic math. If the average rate on that $9.6 trillion goes up by just 2 percentage points, that is around $192 billion in extra interest every single year on top of what is already being paid. And this is not happening in isolation. Net interest on US debt is already on track to exceed $1 trillion per year around 2026. At that level, America will spend more just to service old debt than it spends on the entire defense budget. Interest payments become one of the largest line items in the federal budget. To understand how this plays out, think about a Treasury auction in simple terms. The US government shows up with a batch of bonds that must be sold to pay off maturing debt. Investors line up and say, "I will buy, but only if you pay me this yield." If there is strong demand, yields stay lower. If demand is weak, the yield has to rise until enough buyers agree. Weak auctions mean higher yields, failed expectations, and at times, mysterious indirect bidders stepping in that look a lot like official support. Now imagine running that process again and again for $9.6 trillion, while China and other foreign players are cutting or diversifying away from treasuries. The US has to lean more on price-sensitive private money and on domestic institutions to absorb record amounts of debt at higher yields. That is where the strain shifts from abstract auctions to the balance sheets inside the country. When foreign buyers pull back, the US does not stop borrowing. It turns inward. The gap is filled by domestic absorption. That means US banks, pension funds, and even Social Security are pushed to hold more treasuries. Social Security, which is already nearly insolvent on its own projections, holds multiple trillions of dollars in US debt. Every extra dollar that is forced into government bonds is a dollar that does not go to households, small businesses, or real investment. The system starts to feed on itself. It becomes a snake where the head is eating its tail. Banks are already in a weak position. They piled into treasuries and other long-term bonds when yields were near 0%. Now yields are much higher, so those old bonds are worth less on the market. The losses are unrealized on paper, but they are real. US banks are sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars in these unrealized losses. They cannot sell without exposing how thin their real capital is. This is why US banks are just one bad decision away from collapsing. We already saw the playbook with Silicon Valley Bank. Rising rates, bond portfolio underwater, depositors losing confidence, forced selling, and then the illusion of safety disappears overnight. Many other institutions are running a softer version of the same risk. Pension funds and Social Security also cannot absorb unlimited amounts of new debt without putting future benefits at risk. At some point, there are not enough willing domestic buyers at current yields. All roads lead back to the Federal Reserve. When foreigners and local institutions cannot or will not fill the gap, the last tool is more QE and more money printing to buy that debt. Every new dollar created to plug the hole dilutes the value of the dollar you already hold. Every single dollar you have becomes worth less. Inflation and currency debasement are the default path if this continues, especially when we are talking again about roughly $11 that needs buyers in a market that is less deep and less liquid than before. So your cost of living gets squeezed from both sides. Higher interest costs on debt and weaker, more unstable growth. Savings in nominal dollars sit in the crossfire. The system is not collapsing tonight or tomorrow, but the direction is clear. Less foreign trust, more expensive debt, and more pressure on your savings. What do you think breaks first? Foreign appetite for US debt, the banking system that holds it, or the patience of ordinary people watching their costs explode? Tell me in the comments, and if you want to follow where this story goes next, subscribe so you do not miss the coming updates.